Welcome to Jurassic Park.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind.
Welcome to the party, pal.
I'll be back.
I'll have what she's had.
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
Here's looking at you, kid.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello, I'm your host Jim McLean. Welcome back to another episode of More Than Pixels on a Screen, a spoilerific movie review podcast brought to you by Banterflix, cinematic discussion with a Northern Irish accent, and we are concluding our live-action Spider-Man retrospective. Adam, there's a story. There's always a story when you and I come together. So on the last pod, it was yourself and the lovely Mark Corrigan talking about Andrew Garfield's tenure. You and I have previously talked about the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire pods. But we're going to be talking about Tom Holland. Now, for the listeners, Adam, this is going to be the first time they've heard us talking about this. But we've actually done not one, but two remote recordings talking about Tom Holland, and on both times there's been a fuck up because, as you can probably gather, we are still recording remotely because I'm still sick and well, and that means the studios, I just can't get in and out of the studio, so I'm doing it remotely. And Adam, we have done, I think, 5.5 hours. And that's Adam's like, yeah, you fucking laugh.
I have my 5.5 hours of audio.
Yes, you have your 5.5 hours of audio. It's there. Maybe we should put it up on its own little thing. Yes, we have had 2 attempts to record this Tom Holland pod, and because of me insisting I'm doing, I know a really good way to get the best quality audio. I think you'll agree, Adam, it works just when you don't have Colonel Klutz in control. Like, I'm like the worst guy. It's like I'm as good as editing a podcast as the stormtroopers are at shooting Luke Skywalker. They always shoot left.
We have a new podcast producer. I'd like to introduce Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this, and we are going to try and be concise, because for us, the points that we've made that are going to come across as witty, funny, oh my god, insightful. I never thought about that about Tom Holland before. We've talked about this this will be the 3rd time we've fucking talked about it. Hey, I'm going to say right from the get-go, I used to like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I really did. And now, because of computers, the internet, everything, there's things that people are going to miss that I think we should bring back somehow into this pod, Adam. There's Robert De Niro's Donald Trump.
We can't really bring it up naturally. I want to let the viewers know, the first podcast we made some great jokes. The second podcast we were like, right, we don't need to acknowledge, but we'll make sort of the same jokes again because they were so good for the first one. Now it's the third one. It's sort of like, oh, do you want me to do Donald Trump as Robert De Niro?
Yeah, this is like Todd Phillips with the Hangover movie. Guys, just do it again. Just do the same thing for the 3rd time over. It'll be good. So we're going to be talking about the 3 movies particularly. This is going to be concise podcast. We're going to be as quick as we possibly can going through these. So as always, I'm joined by my lovely host, Adam What's Happening Neeson. So Adam, as we've said on the last pod, you were joined by Mark Corrigan. You talked about Andrew Garfield. You give those 2 movies a little bit of love. They are flawed. I think we both accept that, and even Mark accepts that. They're flawed movies, but there's positives to be had there. And Andrew Garfield, I'm going to say it right now, is probably the best actor. Clarifying that, I think he's the best actor. I don't think he's been in the best Spider-Man movies, but I think of the 3, he is the best actor to date to play Peter Parker. So that's one point that we made on the 2 attempts that we've got over straight away. So I think what we'll do, I know we're going to focus primarily on the 3 movies. I think it would be remiss of us not to start with Civil War. And to kick things off, I thought I'd play a little clip that I have of Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. in a kind of casting rehearsals to try and get a bit of chemistry between the two. And I thought we'll kick things off by playing a clip of that.
For a young man walking into a room with Robert Downey and into a room with Chris Evans, that's got to be terrifying as an actor. Like, you're walking in with probably your childhood idols.
Do I need to do that? I know we're on different teams. I just don't want to be disrespectful to you.
You surrender.
Wait. Whoa, that thing does not obey the laws of physics.
And obviously he got the gig.
Seriously, kid, where are you from?
Queens.
Well, maybe it's time you went back to Queens.
A little help? Thank you. I can only imagine what it is you're going through.
Anytime you're going to cast a role as big as Spider-Man, there's a huge search involved. And Serafin and her team looked at 7,500 tapes.
It was crazy. It was a pretty daunting process. I went through a phase of just doing self-tapes after self-tapes after self-tapes. I guess when you can do what I can do, maybe you have a responsibility to do some good with it.
Then we met about 200 boys, and there were so many of them that were so good. But Tom was different than everyone else.
Okay, then.
There was just something about Tom Holland's performance that was just so energetic and real and grounded and full of attitude.
There was all these screen tests, and I got to meet Tom while he was in the final run in there.
God, I don't want to jump the gun. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I love adventure. Yeah.
So that's a clip of Tom and Robert Downey Jr. That wasn't me just sneaking behind the camera somewhere. That's up on YouTube, freely available. We'll have links on the show notes on the episode. So we go back to 2016, Adam, for the third time. We go back to 2016. We don't need a DeLorean. We just need me fucking about with the podcast edits. And Tom Holland, I think he's 18, 19 when he's cast as a Spider-Man. I think it's fair to say relative unknown. I think he had been in the Clint Eastwood film. Is that the Tsunami with Naomi Watts? I forget, The Impossible?
The Impossible. It isn't Clint Eastwood. It's J.A. Boyetta.
You're right.
The Jurassic World film.
You're very right. I apologise, listeners. I'm incorrect from the get-go. I've claimed it was a Clint Eastwood film for 3 attempts at this episode, talking about Tom Holland. But yeah, I think that would be his biggest role to date. I think I have mentioned before, I seen him pop up in an Irish-Scottish production. I think it's filmed the Pilgrim or the Pilgrimage, where he spouts a bit of Irish, does it well, but relative unknown, but looks the part, is great. And in Civil War, which of course is Captain America, the third part of his cinematic trilogy, we see him revealed to the MCU because Sony and Marvel, we know this from, you guys talked about this in the last pod, where the Sony hack, it was revealed that the discussions were happening that Sony's idea for a Spider-Verse, more on that later, I guess, of their own, where they could have this whole expanded universe set within the confines of Spider-Man, wasn't working. Amazing Spider-Man 2, as you guys mentioned, it wasn't a flop by any means. It just doesn't make a massive amount of money, I think, that they had hoped. So they decided to retool it. The MCU... Spidey joins the MCU. Disney pay about £175 million. Then there's extra money for a certain number of appearances within the MCU. The first of that is Captain America Civil War, as we've mentioned. I think if listeners will remember, famously, Justice League and this were going to be out the same week, and Disney refused to blink. They were very confident in what they had. Justice League ultimately blinked, and Warner Brothers ultimately blinked, and the rest is, I guess we can say, is history on that front. Unless you're Zack Snyder, he's not going to let that one go. He still wants to make those movies. He still wants to make probably another director's cut, another film. But hey, Zack, keep believing, son. It's going to happen someday. It's going to happen for you. But yeah, so we see Tom emerging into the MCU as Spider-Man. No backstory, no origin, and I think, as you've mentioned in the 2 pods that never were, Adam, it's also important to say that Black Panther is introduced to the MCU within that film as well. Probably the 2 big appearances within that film. And I think we'll play a little clip of Civil War, And our little introduction. We've had our little bit of casting between Downey Jr. and Holland. I think we'll play a little clip of Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark meeting Peter Parker.
You're the Spiderling, crime-fighting spider. You're Spider-Boy?
Spider-Man.
Not in that onesie, you're not.
It's not a onesie. I can't believe this. I was actually having a really good day today, Mr. Stark. Didn't miss my train. This perfectly good DVD player was just sitting there, and algebra test. Nailed it.
Who else knows? Anybody?
Nobody.
Not even your unusually attractive aunt?
No. If she knew, she would freak out. And when she freaks out, I freak out.
You know what I think is really cool? This webbing. The tensile strength is off the charts. Who manufactured that?
I did.
Climbing walls? How you doing that? Adhesive gloves?
It's a long story. I was...
Lordy, can you even see in these?
Yes, I can't. Look, I can see in those, okay? It's just that when whatever happened, it's like my senses have been dialed to 11. There's way too much input, so they just kind of help me focus.
You're in dire need of an upgrade.
So that's a clip from Civil War. Yeah, Adam, no real backstory. Just it's a long story. How Spidey got his powers and he kicked things off. I like Civil War. Hey, you've heard this 2 times before. I like this film. I think it does a good job with Captain America. But I guess we're focusing primarily on Spidey. Very briefly, what do you think of Spidey's appearance? I think he does a great job in that sense. Unknown for many actor, and just seems perfect for the part. And a perfect introduction where they don't get bogged down in everything. And the MCU give us an Aunt May that, no matter how many multiverses, everybody wants to bang Aunt May. Marissa Tomei, what's happening?
If you want to see the origins of Uncle Ben and Aunt May, watch the Marissa Tomei episode of Seinfeld. Because canonically, George Costanza is Uncle Ben. I enjoy Civil War. I think, as a Captain America movie, it kind of loses the plot a bit of what was set up in The Winter Soldier. But as a Spider-Man introduction, it's pretty fun. He gets to come into the world. It adds a little bit of color to that world, both literally and metaphorically. And, it was just exciting to see him. I kind of wish they hadn't put him in a trailer, but, if they're going to spend that amount of money, of course, they're going to put him in a trailer. That's how they get butts and seats. But Tom Holland does an excellent job. And I think as an introduction and as, it was so close after The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it kind of had, people being like, well, Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't great, so you can't really go worse than this. And they did a great, the suit looked classic. He got on like Peter Parker. It wasn't too bogged down by an origin story. And it's just give the people what they want, which was Spider-Man in the MCU interacting with the characters they already love.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think the important thing is Tom Holland is now in his mid-20s, so he's the age now after, 5-6 appearances in the MCU to date. He's the age now that the likes of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were originally cast in the role. So I think the fact that they got someone who was closer to the age of Peter Parker looked very much for me anyway like how I envision Peter Parker from when you're reading the comics. That's the kind of thing. I mean, as much as I love Tobey Maguire, as much as I love Andrew Garfield, yeah, so it does a good job. He takes on everybody. It's a very brief appearance. We see him in Brooklyn, we see them and everything in Berlin. He takes Cap's shield and the eyes, everyone just loses their mind about the fact that the eyes move. I think that's the first. Is it? Because I can't remember, because I haven't watched the Garfield movies for the pods, because, you didn't want me on. I wonder why, after our last fuck-ups with these two talks about these two attempts to pod about Tom Holland. But I don't think Garfield's the spiders, not his eyes. I want to specifically clarify. I'm sure Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's eyes move. I'm sure of that. They're not animatronic. They are not. I don't know the actors. I'm going into too much detail, but the spider suit eyes. I don't think neither of those in those renditions. I don't think they moved. Did they?
No, they were static eyes, but I don't know. I never seen it as an issue when watching those movies. I wasn't like, why does his eyes not move? But then it does add a lot when watching Maguire's. It also like you wonder not a lot of superheroes wear masks, but they obviously implicate that or not implicate use that technology and that method and move it over to Deadpool as well to give him sort of expression, and it's a good use of CGI. It is sort of weird that every Spider-Man suit is fully CGI. Like I don't think a lot of people realize that. And it's well, people complain about CGI these days. I think the smaller things like the eyes and the costume is definitely, a step forward in technology.
Yeah, I think just because when you mentioned that, I'm thinking of like the shots or the photos from the set of the new Superman movie, and everyone was going, "Oh, the suit looks shite." It's like, kids, that's not going to be the suit you're going to see in the movie. And even more recently, they were taking the piss out of the set photos from the new Fantastic Four movie, and they were showing the Thing. It's like, it's not going to look like that. That's just to help the actors, I don't know, do stuff and give the kind of animators a little bit of insight. But I think it just adds something that the eyes move when every character within the MCU that wears a kind of suit, like we think of Tony Stark, we think of his inside his helmet, that's his vision, you kind of see that. I think they do something similar with Ant-Man as well. So it's just a little thing. But hey, so that's him in Civil War. I know we'll touch, I guess, a little bit upon his appearances in Infinity War and Endgame. But then a couple of years later, we see Homecoming, directed by John Watts, who'd go on to direct not one but all three of these Spider-Man movies within the MCU. I admitted I wasn't that familiar with his work outside of a few music videos, quite a few music videos. And hey, some pretty good filmmakers have come from music video backgrounds, but you are a bit more familiar with John Watts' work than I am, Adam.
Yeah, he directed a horror movie called Clown. That's not amazing, but it's about a guy that puts on a clown suit and then it won't come off, and then he turns into a monstrous clown. And then he also directed Cop Car with Kevin Bacon, which kind of shows that he can work with younger kids and make them interesting. And Kevin Bacon sort of is a bit of a predecessor to what Michael Keaton would sort of be playing in Homecoming.
Yeah. So I've seen Cop Car. I like it. Just wasn't, as I say, overly familiar that it was directed by John Watts. So he takes over Homecoming. I'm not sure off the top of my head of the film's budget, but it goes on to make $900 million at the box office. So bit of a success, it's fair to say. So before we get into discussing the film, let's play a clip.
Who do you think called the FBI, huh? Do you know that I was the only one who believed in you? Everyone else said I was crazy to recruit a 14-year-old kid.
I'm 15.
No, this is where you zip it, all right? The adult is talking. What if somebody had died tonight? Different story, right? Because that's on you. And if you died, I feel like that's on me. I don't need that on my conscience.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Sorry doesn't
I understand. I just wanted to be like you.
And I wanted you to be better. Okay, it's not working out. I'm gonna need the suit back.
For how long?
Forever. Yeah, that's
No,
how it
no, no,
works.
please, Mr.
Let's
Stark,
have it.
you don't understand. This is all I have. I'm nothing without this suit.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
So that's a clip of Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, Adam, I think this is pretty fun. This is Marvel kind of trying to do kind of high school drama, the kind of shadow of John Hughes, the Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, hangs a lot over it. There's a moment that is very on the nose that I think it just gets away with where we have Spider-Man sweeping in pursuit of Vulture's posse, and as he's doing, they're recreating the sequence from Ferris Bueller, and someone's in the house watching Ferris Bueller. But I think it's fun. It does exactly what it needs to do. It brings Spidey home. It's set at high school, so we're not like the other two movies where he's kind of accepting they've older actors. He's not moving out of college just yet. His biggest concern, other than being Spider-Man, wanting to be a part of the Avengers, is that he just really wants to get with Liz. He just, what's happening? And he wants to take this girl to prom. We do have an MJ, more of that in just a moment. But it's fun. It's very kind of its own thing. And I think more importantly, it's got probably one of the best villains, I think, within the MCU with Michael Keaton's Vulture. We see it's like a post-credit or pre-credit sequence where he's there channeled with cleaning up New York after the attack that we've seen at the end of Avengers. And I think I said this in the previous pod recording that we tried that never was. I think that's, in context of what we've been discussing with Spider-Man and how things like 9/11 have shaped that. I think it's kind of thing you think, wow, we've come a long way from, post 9/11 where we have to take a sequence out of involving the two towers out of the first Raimi film to, right, New York's been pretty much kind of attacked, semi-destroyed. There's a group cleaning up it. Damage Control, I think that's their first appearance in the MCU on screen. They say, you're fired, you're off the job. Keaton's Vulture decides he's going to make his own ends meet by turning to a life of crime. Not to take over the world, not to take over New York, but just so he can help put his daughter through college and enjoy a slightly better life. We can all relate to that, Adam. We can all relate to that guy. We can always do. Well, I don't have a daughter I have to put through college. We've recently got a little puppy. Maybe he's going to have to go through puppy school, so maybe I'll turn to a life of crime for that. But yeah, Homecoming's fun. It introduces the ensemble, MJ, Flash Thompson, etc., Ned. I know you've kind of touched on this about kind of Ned's kind of an amalgamation from various different versions of different characters, but Homecoming's fun.
Yeah, I like Homecoming. It's more of what I wanted from Spider-Man, of like, him counting down the minutes to get out of school so he can go fight crime, stopping bike thieves, stopping car burglars, even though they might not actually be car burglars. And it is sort of, the encapsulation of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that I love. And a lot of Homecoming kind of sticks with that, where the other movies don't. And it naturally introduces villains. You've two versions of Shocker, you have the Tinkerer, you have Vulture, obviously. And then the Prowler, but not the Prowler. And not Danny Glover, but Donald Glover. Listen back to previous pods that you'll never get to listen to. But it is one of those fun introductory movies that I don't think Marvel really get to do, because they are bogged down by origin stories with the first movie. But obviously, like Black Panther kind of gets away with this too, even though Black Panther's a little bit more serious because he's already been introduced in a movie. There is already interest in his origin story, and you don't have to be so heavy-handed with being like, and this was him as a boy, and this was him getting to be king. It's like he already is king by the time that movie starts. But yeah, just a quick off-hand story. Jim, stop me if you've heard this one twice before. But I got my first epileptic fit the week before Spider-Man came out, and I was told like I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital, even though I was protesting and saying I had to leave because Spider-Man is out tomorrow, so I had to go see it. That's how much my love for Spider-Man is. I was like, oh, I might be dying, but also Spider-Man.
What I picture in my head, Adam, is you sitting there in the hospital with a full... I don't know what way I want this to work. A Spider-Man suit, but no mask. Or the hospital gown, and a Spider-Man. I think I prefer a hospital gown and a Spider-Man mask. That's how I picture it in my head.
I like to think they were like, you can watch the new Spider-Man, but here is who's going to bring it in on a laptop, and it's John Cena. And I'm like, oh no, I am dying.
I'll never see the sequel. But you're here. You got to see. Good job, little buddy. You got to see all of the Spider-Man movies, and you eventually got to see it in the cinema. Where would you rate Keaton's villain? Because the fact that he's not like Thanos, where he's not a genocidal Bono. He's not out to, destroy half the universe's population. I'm trying to think, he's not like, well, we don't really talk about Kang the Conqueror anymore. We don't talk about him at all. But I don't know, we're going to have Doctor Doom. I guess we'll talk about that more in the Ramble. That feels like a lifetime ago now. Robert Downey Jr. cast in that role. Moment of genius or moment of just, we need to fucking bring Downey Jr. back to save the MCU. Or I can't think of other really big villains that we've had. We talked about this before in the pod. I mean, I would put the likes of Keaton up there high. Killmonger from Black Panther, where they feel there's morals to what they're doing or morality to what they're doing. I don't know. I'm sure there's other people who'll be like, why are you not mentioning this or that? I know in the pod that wasn't, you mentioned Winter Soldier, but is he himself a villain? Because he's just brainwashed, Adam. Is he the true villain? Discuss.
He shoots Robert Redford's maid in the head.
That's true.
It's pretty bad. Villain-wise, I love Ego from Guardians 2. Just because he's, just a prick.
And Kurt Russell.
Oh, yeah, because, I'm like, I hate you, but I want to kiss you. And then I love Baron Zemo in Civil War. It's sort of like an underlying villain of that movie. And then they did Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and instead of being like, he had a really good performance, everybody was like, did you see him do the dance in the club? Make it a gif. Make it a gif. It'll be a good laugh.
Hopefully there'll be more of that with what's their version of Thunderbolts? Isn't that what it is? Isn't he in that?
Thunderbolts and in a wee asterisk for some reason.
Very important that. But yeah, I think Keaton's a great villain, and it kind of comes to that whole rivalry comes to fruition when we have the reveal of Keaton figuring out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man because he's mad about Liz. There's a whole big kind of classic 80s John Hughes kind of homage where he's getting taught to dance by Aunt May, getting on the suit and all that stuff. And then he goes to Liz's house. He's finally plucked up the courage to ask her out. And it turns out it's Keaton is her dad. And they're in the car. And I think, as I said in the pods that weren't, I just love the way that it's shot with the use of light, etc. And just great between Keaton and Holland's Peter Parker. So great villain. I think it's important at this point. I think I asked this before. Do you think it's been a wise call by the MCU? They've stripped down the origin story of this Peter Parker, where they just go, it's a long story in Civil War, don't need to get bogged down by it. But they still have Aunt May, sexy Aunt May, but they haven't an Uncle Ben this time round that is there at this point in Homecoming, we'll clarify, to give that speech of with great power comes great responsibility. And here in this film, they kind of throw in Downey Jr. as kind of a proxy Uncle Ben of sorts to welcome him into the MCU. Do you think it's a shame that we don't kind of not even a photograph of anybody to play Uncle Ben, or even just a little pack of rice somewhere to go, it's Uncle Ben's son?
It is pretty depressing that Peter has to have a rice cooker just constantly going because he doesn't have the pleasures of the 60-second instant spicy Mexican. Works well in a burrito, Jim. Now I'm hungry. Yeah, I would like to see an Uncle Ben in the MCU. I know, like the movies sort of the movies sort of to their detriment are origin stories, and then by the third movie, the filmmakers themselves were like, these three movies they're all origin stories, and now he's Spider-Man. Whereas like he was already Spider-Man. He's always just been Spider-Man, and we're seeing him sort of evolve. There isn't much character development in the Peter Parker character, I wouldn't say, between the three movies, but having an Uncle Ben there would have been like Chekhov's gun. I don't know. Um, what's the Marvel equivalent? Uh,
Messaging, messaging, kids.
Send me an email.
There'll be a prize for the best one. Yeah, Adam will give you his Beetlejuice pajamas.
I'll not even wash them, so you can sniff it back on the front. Um, but yeah, I always thought that Ewan McGregor would have been a good Uncle Ben if they went down that road. And I think
I could see him with Marissa Tomei.
I could see me with Marissa Tomei.
So could I, many a time.
As I see me with Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, I just kind of move you aside and just go like a Jedi. Just zoom. It's like, it's not your time, Adam. If you can't do anything without the suit, you're not a hero at all.
But I've already given away my pajamas. When was the first time you seen Marissa Tomei and thought, "Fuck, what's happening"?
You see, I always thought. I mean, my cousin Vinny, I thought she was hot, but she's a woman that, like a fine wine, Adam, has just got better with age. And I think it's just the fact it's in my head. It's like I've never thought of Aunt May as a sexy character. Never thought of that. Sally Field, maybe a few drinks in, be like, all right, couple of Buckfast, maybe, all right, love. You know, the next morning
love me. You really love me.
Next morning might be tiptoeing out, as my dad used to say. But I think it's the fact it's like in my little weird twisted head when we go Marissa Tomei, Aunt May, that'll never work, and you're like, oh, what's happening, Aunt May? It does work, and I think it's I don't know. It's just I don't know. I guess in my head, the name of the actress you know off the top of your head from the first the Raimi movies is who I think of as Aunt May, and I don't think of her in the same way as I think of Marissa Tomei. But Adam, when did you first find Marissa Tomei hot? Because I know George Costanza, as you've already alluded to, does find Marissa Tomei very hot, even back in the early 90s.
Yeah, I think she was like good looking then, but like you say, fine wine. I think in The Wrestler was sort of like the beginning of me being like, fuck, what's happening here? Just looked up Rosemary Harris, the first Aunt May, because I wanted to make a joke, but I was like, but what if she's still alive? She is still alive. She's 96. Don't know if 96-year-olds listen to this podcast, but sure, we'll go for it anyway. Rosemary Harris loves it up there.
And the best thing about it is she'd make me a breakfast the next morning.
Mate, the best wheat cakes you've ever had.
And a cup of tea. And it would be a proper cup of tea, mate. Wouldn't be made in a cup, it'd be made in a pot. That's what I'm going to say.
Here. No, I've had bad images in my head. You hear that whistle? I'm almost finished, Rosemary.
Tell you what, she wouldn't bat your hand away then. But anyway, so so we have sexy Aunt May. Robert Downey Jr. is kind of our proxy Uncle Ben, and we see that kind of more in Far From Home, unsurprisingly, after he's dead. But I kind of like the dynamic they have there. I know they kind of try to recreate the train scene in a way from Spider-Man 2 and Homecoming with the sequence on board the boat, and he's doing whatever he can to stop the boat from collapsing and sinking, and ultimately it's Iron Man comes in. And I know you mentioned earlier on all the suits Spider-Man wears are CGI. In Homecoming, there's definitely one he's not, because he's back to the old kind of like homemade costume for a little bit, because Tony takes the suit off him, because if you're nothing without the suit, then you're not a hero. And it kind of works because it suits the nature of the narrative. And I know we're going to move on to Far From Home, but I think they got the balance in this film. They got the balance right, I think, of it's a friendly neighborhood spider. He's got his teenage angst and all this kind of stuff. He's got his friends like Ned, his guy in the chair. We have the introduction of MJ, Zendaya, who we don't really know who that character is. It's not until really the end, I think pretty much close to the film's finale, that it's revealed that she's the MCU's Mary Jane Watson. Although she doesn't go by Mary Jane Watson. I think it's... Or there's something, I can't remember, there's a line she refers to in the film. I think she doesn't use the Watson, or I think that's, I can't remember. I'm old. I'm at that age, and I've talked about this 3 times. Apologies, listeners. But, yeah, I think they get the balance right, because throughout the film, Peter wants to be a part of the Avengers, and by the end, he's like, you know what, I'm just happy being a teenager. You know, kind of politely, fuck you, Tony, happy, and I'll Pepper, remember her? And we're not going to be, I don't want to be an Avenger. I want to go off and do my own thing. I think of the 3, this is kind of what I wanted that relationship, if you want to call it that, or that partnership between Sony and Marvel, or Sony and Disney to be. It's like, yeah, we can acknowledge things. It's a little bit like the early Deadpool. Not Deadpool, sorry. A bit like the early Daredevil, where they kind of acknowledge stuff but don't really mention it. And it's like the event, and they kind of talk about, again, the big attack in New York. I think, don't they refer to it as the event or something like that? I can't remember. There's a term they use. But it's the fact that they can acknowledge, it's like I'll give you an example off the top of my head. When we first really see Peter Parker's Spidey, you know, taking up some higher level crime than what he's been tackling before. It's like the guys are using the stolen tech, to steal from a bank machine, and they've just got all the masks on. It's like, you guys, that's not Hulk, that's not Thor, you guys aren't the Avengers. I like that in the sense that they can acknowledge stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean I want my web-slinger, you, to be front and center and as like integral part of the MCU, which I think they tried to, it seemed like they were hinting at with Far From Home. But that's just me. That's my thoughts on Downey Jr. What about you, Adam?
I like Downey Jr., of course. It's the thing that annoys me along all of these movies. You have to have an MCU character as sort of like the mentor character. I talked in the previous pod that wasn't that, you know, Tony as a character doesn't and shouldn't really relate to Peter, because, you know, he's come from a rich family. He's never had any struggles. Morally, he's not the same, even though he is a hero. I think Peter works as a loner character, and having, like, you know, a simple story in Spider-Man is he has to fight Shocker, but he also has to get Aunt May a fucking pint of milk. You know, that's basis of what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man, whereas a Tony Stark arc is somebody is trying to steal billions from his company. Oh no, it's fucking the Red Guardian or Crimson Dynamo. Oh no, they've teamed up, the Russians. Oh no. But yeah, Robert Downey Jr., he's always charming. I'm not going to deny that the character isn't fantastic, but having Peter be like, I loved him and he was my mate, and, you know, what am I going to do about him? In the future movies, you're kind of like, right, okay. And then in the Avengers, they have the fucking Mr. Stark. You're like, right, okay. I don't know why they lean so heavily on that, but it doesn't really work for me.
And, you know, I think on that point, you know, we are going to, you know, rush through these films as quickly as we can. I know we're going to come to Far From Home, but in between that, we have Infinity War and we have Endgame. Shock horror, Peter Parker doesn't play that big a role within Endgame because he blips near the end of the first film. And call me an old cynic, but the camera and it just pans. He turns to smoke or turns to dust a little bit slower than everybody else. Everybody else just kind of goes, and he's sitting there. I think, isn't Tony holding him in his arms, and it's like, I think he might say like, "I don't want to go, Mr. Stark," or something along that lines. Like, I feel cold. I feel cold, Tony. Don't know why he talks like that. And Robert Downey Jr. just goes, "They're great," because for no apparent reason he's Tony the Tiger. But yeah, I mean, you have issues with you have issues with the three films, the kind of continuity of his character, which I don't really have as big an issue with you. And I think I said on the pods that never were, I think part of that does come into play with this nature of this deal with Sony, where I guess Disney don't really know if that character's going to be there next time. Because I think before No Way Home, I think they had to kind of renegotiate the contract because the movies made so much money, and Sony, whether rightfully or not, were like, Spider-Man's a big part of that, so we want a bigger piece of the pie. And I know that's been settled. There's a fourth movie in this Spider-Man universe, or the Spider-Man series, in the works. I think Tom Holland's signed up for it. They just haven't found a director and worked on a script. Depressingly, 2 weeks ago when I started we were doing this recording, I think I was reading somewhere online that they want to do another multiverse. We'll come to that with No Way Home. I don't know whether I want that or not, but Infinity War, Endgame, I mean, he doesn't do much in Endgame other than kind of show up with a lot of other people really at the end and show up at a funeral for old Tony. But yeah, he gets to have fun. There's kind of your beloved Guardians of the Galaxy. He gets to get a whippy snaps with them, bit of Kevin Bacon jokes. And because I have the benefit now of two separate recordings, the old nerds get to see him in the Iron Spider suit.
Which is a terrible suit. And I don't know why they rely so heavy on the metal arms. Like, even when he turned up in that suit in the comic of Civil War, people were like, "Ooh, why does he have this?" And then for some reason he just has it for 3 whole movies. I guess toys, that's always the answer, isn't it? But it's a suit that I have never really enjoyed, even when I play the PlayStation 4 or 5 video games, and they're like, "Here's the Iron Spider suit." I'm like, "Well, fucking take that off. Put the original suit back on, Pete."
See, I thought for a second you meant as in you tried to fit it on, tried to wear it around the house, and kind of run around the house chasing Heidi and your cat as the Iron Spider.
Just they'd be able to identify me, like, he's wearing a spider suit, and you could see his fucking meat and 2 veg hanging out the front of it.
He's got a Spider-Man suit, but on top of it, he's also got his Beetlejuice pajamas.
Smell the front and the back.
You're, email in, listeners, if you want Adam's used pajamas. We might even separate if someone just wants the tops and someone wants the bottoms. Specify what you'd like. I don't know.
Just write in hashtag Adam Top and hashtag Adam Bottom. We'll get them.
Yes. So I know we're going to move on to Far From Home, but just I know you've made this point before. You've issues with the kind of continuity of Peter Parker's character and his arc kind of within the MCU, and we see that particularly what we see from the Spider-Man movies and the Avenger movies.
Yeah, it's it just there is no arc. It's sort of, he is like, "I don't need the Avengers" by the end of Homecoming, and then literally the next time you see him, he's like, "I'm an Avenger." And you're like, "Fucking what?" And then when he goes back to his own movie, it's sort of, "Oh, I miss Tony." You're like, "Right, okay." And then by the end of that movie, it's never, like, in No Way Home, it's never acknowledged. Tony Stark may as well not even fucking exist, because they've already moved on to Doctor Strange. And then, it is just like a fucking kick in the dick of them being like, at the end of No Way Home, he's finally Spider-Man, and you're like, "But why did I watch 3 fucking movies if you're going to tell me at the end of it, no, he's Spider-Man?" It's like, I understand you trying to build the character, but there's been no inclination and no sort of like lead up. As soon as start Homecoming, he is Spider-Man. He has everything. He's the suit. He's the web shooters. He's smart. There's nothing more to add apart from the other characters in his roster, and the movies are so busy with putting him in space or putting him in Europe or putting him in the multiverse that they sort of forget the core team of what makes Spider-Man interesting, of, a love interest, an enemy, a friend, an arch enemy. Amazing Spider-Man 2, for as bad as it is, sometimes sort of gets that balance right, because like one day he's stopping, a bus from crashing, the next day he's stopping the Rhino, whereas he doesn't seem to have any of that. He's never even experienced any of that in the MCU. Like, he's went from stopping a bicycle thief to fighting a literal god, and you're like, where's the in between? I want to see the in between.
Well, I guess you could say Disney aren't going to pay that money and bring him into the MCU just for him to stop a bike thief. I don't know. I mean, there's arguments pro and for. I get where you're coming from, and I agree with you. So we've had Homecoming, Infinity War, Endgame, and now we have Far From Home, which I guess would have been a real bollocks to market, because, pretty much front and centre, that is the death of Tony Stark. I know people at the time complained they were going to see Endgame in the cinema, and there's an advert going, Tony Stark, his dad, is dead. And they're like, for fuck's sake, I haven't watched it. Well, just go see it day one, guys. That's how you solve that. Stop being lazy bastards. But that's just me. So we have Far From Home. Spidey, they did a little bit with Homecoming. I know we didn't really mention it. You have that great set piece in Washington where he has to save his classmates. That's moving out of New York. Here he's kind of going to Europe, as Uncle Liam would say. He's heading there with his classmates, wants to kind of tell MJ how he feels. And for me anyway, if the first movie, Homecoming, borrowed from the kind of John Hughes high school drama, coming of age stuff, I think Far From Home borrows the kind of European National Lampoon's, the vacation movies. In that sense, we have our group of heroes travelling from one place to another. They go to Venice, Prague, London, etc. And I think I've said this, on the pods that never were. I know we'll play a clip in a second, Adam, but Far From Home was one I was a bit underwhelmed with at the time, because it felt like it's like, right, this friendly neighbourhood Spider is becoming much more a part of the MCU. He's going to be the new Tony, which ultimately, as you've mentioned already, didn't really happen with No Way Home. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but the balance moved to more, it's as if like the last one we introduced him with the MCU, that's kind of what they did. But now they have, it's like, right, well, we have him in the MCU. We're going to make him a big, big part. And as we say, the new Tony. So, yeah, I was underwhelmed by it. Rewatching it for the pod, I enjoyed Far From Home much more. Probably a lot of that's down to Jake Gyllenhaal. But we'll pause that for a second and play a clip from the movie.
I trusted Beck, right? I thought he was my friend, so I gave him the only thing that Mr. Stark left behind for me, and now he's gonna kill my friends in half of Europe, so please, do not tell me to relax. I'm sorry, Happy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't shout. I just really miss him.
Yeah, I miss him too.
Everywhere I go, I see his face, and the whole world is asking who's going to be the next Iron Man. I don't know if that's me, Happy. I'm not Iron Man.
You're not Iron Man. You're never going to be Iron Man. Nobody could live up to Tony. Not even Tony. Tony was my best friend. And he was a mess. He second-guessed everything he did. He was all over the place. The one thing that he did that he didn't second guess was picking you. I don't think Tony would have done what he did if he didn't know that you were going to be here after he was gone. And your friends are in trouble. You're all alone. Your tech is missing. What are you going to do about it?
So that's a clip from Far From Home. Adam, you a fan of this installment, this entry?
I think it's fun. I know a lot of people online complain that it's the worst. Mark on the previous pod said it was the worst. I don't think it is at all. You know, it don't want to sound like a broken record. They took him out of New York, but there is fun stuff to be had on holiday. I think it's just sort of doing that sequel bait of, you know, Garfield 2. We gotta get them to London. There's so many sequels where it's like, we gotta put them abroad. In betweeners, we gotta go to Australia. But you know, there is fun bits in it. There's the fights with the elemental people is great. Jake Gyllenhaal, like you say, is fantastic. He gets to play both the leading man and the little freak character actor that we all know Jake Gyllenhaal loves to be. And then it ties into the MCU a bit heavy-handed. Again, you have your mandated MCU character of Nick Fury and Maria Hill sort of being there to be, you know, on Spider-Man's shoulder to be. It's sort of as if they're being like, "Don't forget, you're under contract with us, son. You can't be going off to Europe and having too much fun." But you know, it's a fun movie. It has fun set pieces, great visual stuff with Mysterio at times. But again, doesn't really push the Spider-Man character far for me, and the relationship between him and MJ kind of grows, even though it's clear that MJ likes him. So there isn't really any button heads on that relationship. It's just Peter being awkward. And overall, I don't think the trilogy, it's harmless. It's just a fun movie, and that's kind of, after Endgame, kind of what you wanted.
Yeah, it's a kind of like palate cleanser in the same way like the Ant-Man movies came after some of the bigger, heavier stuff. I think like Ant-Man 2 came after Infinity War, and it was kind of like, okay, we've had the deep and serious, we're going to have something light and breezy. Far From Home, it's, for all its light and breeziness, I mean, it is dealing with some stuff, and it's kind of, I think that's the first time we hear the acknowledgement of the blip as what they refer to it. I think it's the first time, although it's a bit of a double bluff, we hear the talk of the multiverse, because Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio says he's from a different universe. It's a double bluff, and I quite like that joke in the sense it's like he's hired a writing team, and it's like, yeah, this is what they'll fucking believe. They'll believe any old shit with this. And yeah, they have an acknowledgement of kind of, to an extent, of what's happened, and they kind of touch it on at the start, and then kind of once they've got their chess pieces in place in Europe, they're like, yeah, fuck it, we don't need to worry about that. But it's that fact that people disappeared for 6 years, they came back. Older brothers are now, or younger siblings that were younger before the blip are now older. There's a love interest for MJ that was younger in the first film and is now, you know, because he didn't blip, he's 6 years older. I like it. I like the Night Monkey suit for what it is. It's kind of as close as you're going to get to Spider-Man Noir, I guess, in the MCU for now. I know there's the live action stuff with Nick Cage in the works. I think rewatching it, the main thing, I don't know, I've already alluded to this, is Jake Gyllenhaal and that relationship, that sense of how he's a villain that works now in, well, that was 2019 that was out. He works now in the sense of someone who's trying to manipulate kind of what we see. You know, it begs the question, we need to dig a little deeper, what we see in just the surface. We have someone who has an axe to grind against Tony. The Avengers are now seemingly gone. Tony's dead. Cap's seemingly, well, to the world, Cap's dead anyway. Scarlett Johansson's character is no longer with us. Black Widow, they're gone. The Avengers seem to be, you know, all over the place. Vision, we don't know where he is. Well, if you watch WandaVision, you'll figure out what's happened to his corpse. Go on now, Elizabeth Olsen, you do what you're doing, girl. But I think with Mysterio, they do something kind of clever with the kind of classic Steve Ditko, Stan Lee creation, like they did with Vulture. I think it's a Ditko creation, isn't it, Vulture, as well? So from that era, they do something clever. They take this pantomime villain of the week, who we all pretty much know because they've got the big cape and the fishbowl head, and try to use them in this world of fake news and using drones to manipulate what we see and kind of manipulating video footage. It feels right now right on the money. I guess now the only thing you really need to do is add it would be AI, and he would be in 2024. It'd be perfect. But I think they do a clever thing. It works for this. It works for Vulture. I think it's a better job in comparison to what, say, Shane Black tried to do with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, where he kind of said, like, this is a camp-tastic villain. We're going to make this. And again, it's about fake hoods and double bluffs. And I know fans didn't like that. And then Marvel kind of tried to retcon. Well, they've retconned that with Shang-Chi. That, you know, we have a Mandarin. That is everything you want him to be. But then you have the little short as well. Is it not Hail to the King? What is it, the Marvel short that they did?
No, it is Hail to the King, isn't it?
Hail to the King, which is great. Where for a little bit they're like, maybe he is actually the Mandarin. It's a double bluff. But no, and you mentioned it, the kind of bizarre, kind of hallucinogenic sequences are great. They're creeptastic. I think John Watts does a great job. I mean, we've just seen Tony die in the MCU. And then there's that sequence where you see his Iron Man suit coming up from the grave covered in creepy spiders. It's all great. I can't remember if Far From Home was it released in 3D? When I was rewatching it, I was like going, was this a 3D movie as well back when that was as big a thing as it was? Because it's not pointy or anything like that, but you're like, oh, that could work. I can't remember. Message in if you want to get Adam's pants or tops. Also message in and say, was Far From Home 3D? But yeah, I think Jake Gyllenhaal for me, underrated. I think if you dig a little deeper with his villain, for all the things I think are great about it, that sequence in the bar where he's kind of talking to Spidey and he's becoming another kind of pseudo kind of father figure in the same way that Downey Jr. was in Homecoming. He's manipulating that. What is his ultimate game? He wants to become an Avenger, wants to become a hero, and wants all that kind of adulation. But that's day one. Does he then become a hero after that? I don't know. I guess if you, like you've mentioned earlier on, if you dig a little deeper with every kind of anything, you can always find flaws. That's my thing. But I think the stuff in London, the big Tower Bridge sequence, is great. And I know you mentioned, I'm rambling, Adam, the Zendaya and Tom Holland relationship, it's age appropriate. They're not kind of trying to hop into bed with each other. Just want to be smooch and just want to hold hands. And yeah, I like that. I miss that time, a simpler time in my life, when all I wanted to do was get a wee cush.
Get a wee smooch on London Bridge.
Yeah.
I don't know what Mysterio's end game is. It's sort of like, would he be accepted into the Avengers, and then day two he's just sort of Avengers, wonderful people, great people. Thor comes from a different planet. That's okay. Get his papers.
There we go.
So yeah, it's slipping in somewhere.
There's a Robert Downey Jr., Donald Trump that our listeners know they wanted. And I know we're going to move on to No Way Home, because I think it's, without doubt, probably the one I think you and I are the biggest split on. I think this movie sets the seeds for, whether you like it or not, neither of us do, so we're not going to talk too much about it, but Secret Invasion, it sets the seeds, I guess, for the Nick Fury that we see in Secret Invasion, who's become very distrustful of all around him and is not the kind of, bitch, please, you been to space. Greatest line so far in the MCU, because we see that he claims that he always kind of knew that that Mysterio wasn't trusting him completely, but you see someone who's been manipulated by both him and Kobe Smulders when they're looking for new heroes to help the world when an intergalactic intergalactic presence is threatening humanity. They need new heroes, and they realise they've been, duped by old Jake. So yeah, I think you and I think we're quite agreement. I mean, Far From Home, it doesn't deserve, a bit like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, it doesn't deserve the kick-in. But, Adam, we are going to move on. I have one big problem with Far From Home, and it's how they treat the big reveal, as you kind of mentioned, the Empire Strikes Back moment at the end of the movie. Why deal with it as a post-credits thing? Because it literally is just, oh, we've stopped the movie for a second, there's a little bit of music, boop, 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 a little bit of European pop, whoop, 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 and then, oh yeah, by the way, we're back. Oh, Jake's Mysterio, he frames Peter Parker for his death, reveals his identity, and bigger shock, we have J. Jonah back, played by J.K. Simmons. Sadly not at the Daily Bugle, but at the dailybugle.net. Oh, I bet someone thought they were so fucking clever coming up with that. I just thought that was weird that was treated as a post-credit sting, and then, you know, No Way Home literally just picks up from that. So basically, those two movies happen in quick succession to each other.
It is the Marvel assumption that people stay for the credits no matter what. But then again, you might have watched the whole movie, and then when they swing off, you're like, I got my happy ending. I'm away for a shade. And you missed. Then you go into No Way Home, being like, fuck, when that happened? Also, do you remember in the after credits for, was it Venom 2? Whenever Venom is transported to the MCU that leads into No Way Home, and it cuts to footage of Peter Parker in Times Square with the reveal of, oh, Peter Parker's Spider-Man, and it cuts to footage of Tom Holland in the Spider-Man suit but without the Spider-Man mask on, even though he never did that. Because why would he take his mask off and then just stand there being like, oh no.
How did they figure it out?
Although that's the least of Venom 2's problems. But yeah, it's, you know, it's, we'll talk about it when we get to No Way Home, but it's an ending that sort of, you're like, oh fuck, what's going to happen next? And then No Way Home is sort of like, it's a setup, but we won't really do anything with it. I will talk to it when we get to No Way Home. I don't want to start beating the fuck out of that film soon.
Well, what we'll do is we'll jump straight in. So I think we've talked about Far From Home. We've been largely positive. That's my bit of gripe. I just think rewatching it, I think it's weird because I'd misremembered it. I was like, that's the end. My ending is like, all right, it cuts to the credits. His face doing the Macaulay Culkin thing. What the fuck? And it then cuts, and then there's the other kind of the post-credits sting with, isn't it Ben Mendelsohn? And the kind of the scroll and kind of all that kind of stuff that kind of to an extent sets up Secret Invasion, that Nick Fury has been on vacation banging the scrolls. That's what he likes to do. Old Nick with his one eye. But yeah, so that sets up that Secret Invasion. Don't waste your time. So we get No Way Home, and before we get into discussing the film, let's play a little clip.
So you make your own web fluid in your body?
I'd rather not talk about this.
No, I don't mean to.
Are you teasing me?
No. He's not teasing you. It's just that we can't do that. So naturally, we're curious as to how your web situation works. That's all.
But if it's personal, I don't want to pry. But I just think it's cool.
I wish I could tell you, but it's like I don't do it. I don't do breathing. Breathing just happens.
Whoa.
Does it just come out of your wrists, or does it come out of anywhere else?
Only the wrists.
You never had a web block? Because I run out of webs all the time. I have to make my own in a lab. And it's a hassle compared to what you got.
That sounds like a hassle, yeah. But I did, actually. You said that. I was like, oh, I had a web block.
Whoa, why?
Existential crisis stuff.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Hey, what are, some of the craziest villains that you guys have fought?
Seems you've met some of them.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I fought an alien made out of black goo once.
Oh, no way. I fought an alien, too. On Earth and in space.
Oh.
Yeah, he was purple.
I want to fight an alien.
I'm still that you fought an alien in space.
I'm lame compared. I fought a Russian guy in a like a rhinoceros machine.
So that's a clip of our 3 Spideys, all having their kind of little chat about their various powers and what's going on, having a little wonder about Toby. It comes from inside you. Hope you don't get too excited when MJ's around. So, yeah, No Way Home comes out 2021. I don't know if I mentioned the numbers. So, Far From Home made 1.3 billion, and then No Way Home made 1.9 billion. And this was around the time of the kind of the pandemic was still there. We were at that stage, through the worst of it. Social distancing was still a thing. People were worried about the future of cinema. I know people are still very much worried about the future of cinema, particularly now, I guess. There's a discussion to be had. We'll not have it, Adam, because this is the 3rd attempt at doing this pod, when now people are going back to see older films, which is not a bad thing. I don't mind. I mean, it's not that I have an issue with that, but it's a sense you have to also put it in context. You've had the pandemic, you've had the writer and actors strike as well. That's probably playing into why you've got so many of these re-releases. Like, as we record this, The Terminator, I know, is back in cinema. Spider-Man movies are back in cinema. The 30th anniversaries or the anniversary screenings, that was once like the realm of the QFT here in Belfast, Prince Charles, like London further afield, or cinema groups like ourselves were like, fuck, we really love this film from 30 years ago, let's screen it as an alternative. It's now become a place for the multiplex or doing that. But No Way Home, 1.9 billion, as I say, probably surpassed that because it's been back in cinemas a couple of times. Comes out, and I know it has flaws. I know it's far from perfect. And I know Jonathan Cardwell, I never like saying the frame formally of this parish, because Jonathan, you're always welcome back at Banterflix. I can't remember if it was for Belfast Times or if it was just on his own Twitter feed or X feed, whatever you want to call it. Really hated No Way Home. Went in to see it, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it's just that sense. It was the busiest I'd seen cinemas for quite some time. It was a film that tried to put a smile on my face with the nods. I know you call it kind of pause for applause moments, Adam. More on that in a second. I didn't kind of be like that person who's kind of like clapping and cheering at certain moments. I just had a little smile. I was kind of polite since I wasn't like that person who's, in the plane, clapping when the plane lands and going, fucking well done, mate. You did your job and you fucking didn't try to hijack this plane and 9/11 us. I can't even say it. 9/11 us, well done, mate. Good job. You got us from A to B. I don't fucking applaud the taxi driver when he goes that, or my mum or dad or my wife go, you got me to Tesco's. Well done. But anyway, I don't know. I don't have as big an issue with that as I know you do. And I know Deadpool and Logan plays to that similar crowd. Oh, here's this reference. Here's this character. Remember this guy? Hey, do you ever know that this movie nearly happened? Well, now you do. I think No Way Home just about gets the balance right. With the 3 Spider-Men coming back, I think that works at its... The exchanges between those 3 is when I think the film's at its strongest. And I like the fact that Andrew Garfield gets a little bit of redemption. I kind of like the stuff with him where he's kind of talking about post Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's like got angry, stopped, holding back, did some things he's not quite proud of. And he gets a redemption. There's a moment with Zendaya. It's kind of very much kind of recreating the sequence from Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Gwen Stacy. The villains, hey, William Dafoe, when is he not worth a watch? Alfred Molina's back, and the others, everyone apart pretty much from Topher Grace. No one wanted him back. No one wanted Topher Grace. Well, no, I like Topher Grace. I like what he does. Isn't he the guy that does like his own little edits of movies? Doesn't he? Doesn't he like edit The Hobbit into one movie, into an hour and a half or 2 hour movie? I'm nearly certain it's Topher Grace does this.
Yeah, he did The Hobbit and he did the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think he's a good guy. He just kind of got screwed over with Venom, but I think even Sam Raimi just didn't listen to the Raimi pod. But yeah, I mean, I'm more positive about it than you, and I think it's just I look through rose-tinted glasses, put it in context at the time, and just being back in the cinema, and cinema being an event again, which it hadn't really been. I know we had Tenet with Chris Nolan, which was kind of trying to do that, going, it's a Chris Nolan movie, you've got to see it on the big screen. And Tenet as a film, for me, first time left me a bit cold. Multiple viewings, I've warmed to it. I still think it's just a big budget version of that Red Dwarf episode that tries something similar. But yeah, this was a big budget movie, a big event movie that delivered around the time of the pandemic. And I think it was one of the first movies for quite some time to kind of hit that big kind of eye-watering money box office figures. So I'm positive about it. I accept it's far from perfect. You're not as big a fan of it as I am.
No, I think, and I've said this before, the first 45 minutes are fucking drivel. It's, I want to coin the term the new norm when it comes to these movies, and I don't mean the new normal. I mean, whenever Norm walks into the bar and cheers, and everybody goes, Norm! That is everybody watching Deadpool and Wolverine going, Blade! Um, when you watch these movies, not with a crowd, which, you know, the movies are intended to be things you can watch anywhere and get enjoyment out of, the amount of times that there is just pause for applause breaks is ridiculous, and it's just awkwardly paced. And the first 45 minutes of this movie is picking up the pieces of Far From Home and just not doing a really good job with it. It really should have not flew through that sequence, but either flew through it or went deep into it of the ramifications of finding out who Spider-Man is. Like when Spider-Man revealed himself, his face, in the comic books, you know, the ramifications of that were that Aunt May got shot, and then he had to go to Doctor Strange to be like, can you fix this? And Doctor Strange be like, no. So then he has to turn to Mephisto. Whereas like the ramifications in No Way Home is just sort of that, I don't know, his mates don't get into uni. Right, okay. Weird. And that's sort of like the, oh, I've really fucked up. But it's like, I know being young and thinking not getting into uni is like one of the biggest things you can't really handle, but also like they don't even turn around and be like, here, you can sort of probably monetize being Spider-Man and we'll all be sweet. But the last half of No Way Home I enjoy more once, you know, the Spider-Mans all come together and you kind of have the big battle on the Statue of Liberty with the weird Captain America shield. It does get fun, but the first half is sort of the new norm. You have villains that return from previous movies again, like with the Deadpool and Wolverine. It's like, who is fucking applauding for Thomas Hayden Church? Like, get the fuck out of here.
I was, Adam. I was. Good to see him back.
Weirdos like us that are like, fucking he's good and George of the Jungle. You know, it's like, no, like, people fucking hated Jamie Foxx's Electro. And then for him to turn up and people be like, fuck, he's back. You're like, who cares? Alfred Molino's Doc Ock, I get. Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, I get. They were well-realized villains in those movies, but the rest of them were not. I'm fucking sorry to say. So they should have went down a multiversal route of casting new actors as those villains, or maybe give us villains that, you know, you could have had like a techno noir villain of or version of Electro from like 2099. That could have been interesting, you know, something more visually interesting, but instead they went for the easy they'll clap because they know who this is, right?
Yeah, but I guess, you know, if you're going to bring Garfield and you're going to bring Maguire back, you can't have it all be Maguire era villains. You have to bring two, and you don't have that many to choose from. I mean, sadly, they don't have Paul Giamatti as the Rhino. I will stump you. I win Oscar for accent. I Rhino. Pay me now.
I am the Rhino. Awawiwa.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame he doesn't get to appear on screen. Maybe it would have been a clever thing to have. Although he's not, I mean, you could have had Amazing Spider-Man's Green Goblin, but he's a bit shite. And I mean, it's a shame that we never really got to see a Norman Osborn in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, because I know there was scenes shot, they just cut it out because they just said it was too convoluted. But yeah, I guess you just got to accept, Lizard, good villain, doesn't really get a lot in the film. Maybe a villain less maybe would have worked better. I mean, did you need Sandman really? I don't know. Maybe you could have to give Lizard a bit more time. But hey, the stuff in the apartment, the fight scene between Peter when, when Aunt May basically says, look, you've got to help these people. With great power comes great responsibility, Peter. You've got to help these people before sending them back to die. So they'll be for a millisecond. They'll be better people. Unless they're going to go and change. I don't know. Maybe Alfred Molina's Doc Ock will go back to New York and be like, here, I've made some terrible choices. Maybe I shouldn't try to destroy them with this weird ball thing that, isn't Oppenheimer's thing. I don't know. But, and maybe William Dafoe's Green Goblin won't try to kill Peter with his thing.
Your father was killed by his glider.
Glider, that's the word I was looking for. But now we just think of that as being a big glider bus just being through straight at him here. That's a joke for here in Belfast. But yeah, I don't know. I just think Dafoe is worth whatever I paid to see that on the IMAX screen. Every penny. And we get to see more of his face this time because thankfully the mask gets destroyed. Always worth it. Molina, it's weird that they de-aged Molina, but they didn't de-age Dafoe. They just like we're just going to accept he's I don't know. Maybe it's because in the first film he was behind the mask as the Goblin. I don't know. We've alluded to this earlier. Aunt May now becomes the MCU's proxy Uncle Ben after we've had Jake Gyllenhaal kinda, and we've had Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. Aunt May gets to be the one, as Adam would say, pause for applause. With great power comes great responsibility. She's killed by the Goblin. And yeah, it serves its purpose, but you didn't need to kill the sexiest Aunt May the universe has ever seen. Didn't need to kill her, mate.
No, it comes off as a bit cheap. It's just a movie that sort of, you can hear it in my voice just being defeated, being like, okay, there's so many opportunities in this where it could have been better. It seems like they were sort of under the gun to get this done. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. To kind of get it done quickly, for money reasons, also pandemic reasons, it's just, and contractual reasons, like there has to be a Spider-Man movie out every, is it like 2 to 4 years or some shit?
Well, this is now the longest. Now we're in 2024, so this is now in this current guise. This will be the longest now we've went. It's a bit like Bond now, because Bond, of course, you had all the delays, the reshoots, etc. This is now in the new era of Bond, the longest we've went without 007 returning to our screen. Please, come back soon, Mr. Bond. We miss you, whoever is going to play that role. But yeah, so No Way Home, I accept it is playing to entertain crowds, but I think, as we've done throughout, anytime we chat about this stuff, putting it in context, you've mentioned the pandemic, as have I just don't think that's a bad thing. When a film, I think now when you rewatch it at home, yeah, I get what you're saying, the Daredevil stuff, the Tobey Maguire, the reveals of Garfield, although I quite like the awkward exchanges between him and Ned's granny. It's like, could you possibly clean the cobweb up there? I can't reach. I like that. I mean, yes, we've got our villains, but No Way Home leaves us with the universe, the entire multiverse, it seems, now no longer knowing that Peter Parker, well, no longer knowing that Peter Parker existed, I guess, is the way of working it. That sense, if I'm correct from that, that's the spell that we haven't even really mentioned Doctor Strange, because this was other than the appearances in the Avengers stuff. I mean, this is the most we'd had of Doctor Strange after the first movie, and I know post that we then got the Multiverse of Madness directed by Raimi, but I mean, he's kind of at one point near, you talk about that early 45 minutes, he's almost like a villain of sorts, where it's like, no, Peter, I have to stop you. You're going to try and help these people, but these are villains. They need to be sent back to the universe. Just press the fucking button, mate, and end it. And yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch, always worth a penny. And is the point, Adam, where then you go, another movie or more stuff you wanted to see with Doctor Strange was?
A Wong movie, as they reveal that Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme. And it's like, well, give me that. Because even in Multiverse of Madness, it's sort of like Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme, but they kind of just like don't really acknowledge it, semi-acknowledge it. It never feels like Doctor Strange is on the back foot because he's not in charge anymore. But give fucking Benedict Wong a movie. Come on.
Yeah, I'd be up for that. I think they kind of acknowledge that Wong's the Sorcerer Supreme, isn't it? In She-Hulk more, a little bit. I think they kind of acknowledge that. But yeah, so No Way Home makes a lot of money at the box office. Huge success. We are left with a Spider-Man that the MCU, the entire universe, no longer knows is Peter Parker. No one knows of Peter Parker's existence. Aunt May is no longer with us. Zendaya and Ned are accepted for college. They're going off. And yeah, which, I mean, I know we're, of the three movies, I know I wasn't on the Amazing Spider-Man pods. It was yourself and Mark talking there. But I think Holland for me is the all-rounder, the perfect all-rounder as Spider-Man Peter Parker. Maguire's a perfect Peter Parker. I think I've said in the previous pod, the Raimi stuff, I don't necessarily buy him as Spider-Man, but I think Garfield is without a doubt the best actor. And I think when you see the three of them on screen together, and particularly that stuff I mentioned with Garfield, like about being angry after the death of Gwen Stacy, you just realise, fuck, what a good actor. I know I've said before in the pods that I think he's maybe a bit too lanky. I mean, when you see him beside all three, it's like, fuck, he's a giant in comparison. But that's a small niggle, Andrew. You're a fucking fab actor. You're just a bit tall. Boo. I'm sure you're going to be crying over your Weetabix this morning if you're listening, Andrew. Still love you, mate. But
he does listen. He got in and text during the ramble saying he actually shit himself while making Tick Tick Boom.
And that's why he was so angry. It wasn't because everyone kept asking him about is he going to be in No Way Home. It's like he's like, I've shit myself. I just want to get this. Every time anyone asked him about it, he just shit himself because he was scared that MCU were listening. So yeah, Andrew, thanks for messaging in. So we're going to wrap it up. Adam, so thoughts for the future? I mean, it's the MCU. If they wanted, they could recast. They could. We could go to another universe, have another Spider-Man. We could go back to Tobey Maguire. We could go back to Andrew Garfield. I guess the logical thing that we know is going to happen, they are going to have to introduce a Miles Morales into the MCU. The Spider-Verse movies have proved that there's an audience out there ready to accept Miles as their Spider-Man. You know, his tenure now Ultimate. It's not just a new thing now. That's been going for years. He's established both in the Spider-Man games as well. He's had his own game as well, and that has been successful. I know. I think we mentioned before we would have our little bits of casting choices if we could cast a Miles Morales. I think my choice was Dallas Dupree Young from Cobra Kai. I think because he could do all the martial arts stuff. And your choice was?
Tony Cox. Just not going to say anything else. Just Google Tony Cox. And then hashtag Adam's great.
What about, just to kind of come full circle on my joke from earlier on, what about maybe Danny Glover? Digitally de-age him? Digitally de-age him.
Do you know in The Irishman when they digitally de-age De Niro and he could barely kick anybody?
Yeah.
I want that.
I want that. Kevin Feige, if you're listening, and we know you sound suspiciously like Kermit the Frog, but, you know, make it happen, or just go down the route of change, keep one live action actor and everyone else played by Muppets. I'm down for J.K. Simmons carrying on as J. Jonah Jameson, but everyone else in the MCU being a Muppet in the next Spider-Man movie. I'd happily, Spider-Man Takes Manhattan.
Yep. Gonzo, Spider-Man, Sweetums, Venom, Miss Piggy, Gwen Stacy, Pepe Le Prawn, Scorpion.
Yeah, just sells itself.
Rizzo, Furman. Luckily, most of the Muppets are animals, so you can sort of make it.
Well, maybe Rizzo would not be Ned, the guy in the chair.
Yeah, true. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, Doc Ock.
Brilliant.
Beaker, Carnage.
Who's going to be our Green Goblin? I suppose it kind of has to be Kermit.
Well, yeah, you could. Kermit and Constantine doing a double role. He's just in the mirror, being like, "You gotta kill Gwen Stacy," and then he's like, "But I'm number one, and you're number two."
Sometime, I think before Christmas, we have to do a Muppets Most Wanted pod, which will just be us doing musicals, which makes me back. I think maybe at some point we should go back and play when we had a friend of mine, Gareth Brown, and I were messing about, and we did a rendition of Man or a Muppet on this pod in a previous guys many years ago, which I still often listen to and puts a smile on my old man face. But yes, Kevin Feige, if you're listening, a Muppets Spider-Man movie, make it happen. But
it writes itself, or say we can write it, Kev.
We've got this for you. We've got this. Adam can do the writing, and I can chirp in with just maybe an idea. I'm the ideas guy. We're like the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon writing partnership. You'll be sitting writing, and eventually I'll just fart, and that'll be it.
Put my name on that. One of the best Family Guy jokes.
So, I know we're joking around Muppets very quickly. I mean, Miles Morales is probably the obvious choice that we know we're going to probably have in the next Spider-Man movie. I guess, Adam, you want it firmly set in New York. We want no supervillains. We want Spider-Man taking on like a fraudster who is scamming old ladies out of their money.
Yes, and then he takes his mask off, and it's the chameleon. I think I said on the Amazing Spider-Man podcast, post Secret Wars, gimme universe semi rebooted, Aunt May, Uncle Ben back alive, Gwen Stacy's
but then
there.
they're just gonna have to die again. We don't need that, Adam. We don't need to see them die again. It's like poor old Bruce Wayne's parents when they retool Batman again. We don't need to see another actor. Here, I've got tickets to go see Zorro. Oh, fuck, mate, don't go see it.
Well, okay, Uncle Ben's still dead. Give me Gwen Stacy, give me Harry Osborn. But then semi have, like, in the House of M comic books, when Scarlet Witch rewrites the universe, which I think they'll probably do in Secret War. I think because she's been made out to be a villain, I think they'll sort of give her a face turn and she'll help. I think they'll do the reverse of House of M. If you've ever read House of M, it's like she says no more mutants and deletes all the mutants. I think they'll do the opposite and have her fix the universe, and then that's how you'll introduce an MCU X-Men. But in that comic book run, Peter wakes up and Uncle Ben is alive and he's married to Gwen Stacy and he has kids. And
no, I just want to clarify: Uncle Ben's not married to Gwen Stacy. Peter's married to Gwen Stacy.
Although there is a comic book one where Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn were bucking, but that's been retconned. But he is told, look, this is a fake universe. You have to come back to your own universe. And then when he comes back to his own universe, he doesn't forget the House of M stuff. So he has to live with the thought of he's lived a whole life with Gwen Stacy and his Uncle Ben, and fucking they're just gone forever. Have that in the MCU, where Peter's struggling with this new. It's like, do you know when Marty comes back from the past in Back to the Future. And Mickey runs in and fucking his mum and dad are yuppies and they're like, oh, my new book arrived. And here, your mum or your man tried to rape you. He's washing the car. Have that. Because they clearly want Tom Holland to be the sort of Marty McFly. You know, everybody's like, they should do a reboot of Back to the Future with Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. Please don't. But he is the Peter Parker he plays is a bit Marty McFly-ish. So have that Back to the Future style ending where the world is slight of changed.
Yeah,
and you can have the knock, 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 open the door, face the tiger. You've hit the jackpot finally.
Yeah, I mean that would be the dream for many a man of a certain age who grew up in the Spider-Man comic. Oh, MJ, you and Chitara from Thundercats, 30-year-old Jim. Still holds a candle. What can I say between that and maybe Kim Basinger in Cool World? Oh, mama. But I'm worried that Sony seem to want to do another multiverse story because the last one made so much money. I don't think that just means, we need to have them all back again doing stuff or doing the multiverse stuff. It's like, let's just hop between universes and just be friends and just chat. I think that works in the Spider-Verse stuff. I don't necessarily think it would work there, but potentially maybe it's going to be used as a device then to set up the events of Secret Wars. I don't know, because you're going to need something now if you're not using Kang the Conqueror, because he's not part of the MCU anymore. Well, you Google it and you'll find out why. I know you guys talked about it a bit more than I always want to talk about it. Anytime we get semi-serious subject matter, but just Google it. The actor Kang the Conqueror. What's happening with him? You don't really want to know. But they've now got to retool a reason for having all this multiverse stuff that they've been setting up. Ultimately for the Kang the Conqueror stuff. But that's not going to happen now. So I'm just wondering, is maybe Peter, trying to tell someone that he's actually Spider-Man and who he is? Is it going to be breaking the spell? Is that going to be used as something? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Message in with your ideas for Spider-Man 4. I don't know. Would you like to see a Raimi Spider-Man 4? Would you like to see a Garfield Spider-Man 3? Amazing Spider-Man 3? I don't know. I think those ships have sailed and that's done and dusted. No Way Home was a nice way for me to say goodbye to them. And I'll always have those movies. It's like, I know we're wrapping up, but I always remember going to cinema to a midnight screening, I don't know why, of Terminator. Terminator Genesis, not Dark Fate. Because Dark Fate's okay. It's just meh. It's the best one since 2. Well, you've got to forget the rest of them. But I remember going to see Terminator Genesis at the old Dublin Road, RIP, and walking down the stairs, and there was a girl and a guy, like similar age to myself, and they were like, well, that just raped my childhood. It's like, did it? Did it really? Did that really rape your childhood? I really wanted to turn around and be like that and go, like, is that really what it did? Because it didn't fucking erase them. It's like, the events of Terminator 2, whatever. I was like, no, it's not. Like, you can go home right now if you fucking want. You can go home and watch Terminator 2 if you want. No, like James Cameron, or not James Cameron, but Arnie and stuff aren't coming around to your house and fucking stealing all the copies going, it never happened. Don't know why he talks like that. But, I don't know. I mean, despite the Raimi Spider-Man 1, 2, 3 is always going to be there. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, if you really want to fucking go and watch it, go watch it. If you just want to hear Rhino going, I'm Rhino, I will crush you. Recommend. My brother, he pain in the ass. I get no house, he get no house. But they're always going to be there. And I think No Way Home was a nice way of, in the same way you didn't love, I don't think you hated it, I just think you just didn't love it, Deadpool and Wolverine, that kind of like post-credit kind of swan song, time of your life kind of stuff. It's like the Fox universe was important. It kind of set up where we are now in the same way the Sony stuff have set up to where we are now, but the ship has sailed in those. We want new stories. I don't necessarily need to go back and do that. But I don't know. That's just me rambling and stuff. Any last thoughts, Adam, before we close the door and hope this time, third time's a charm for us on the recording of this pod? And Adam awaits the dreaded text from me going, "I done it again, Adam. I blew up my computer."
Final thoughts. Look forward to the future. You know, no matter what.
Hang on, Adam. Are you giving advice to people? Because it's, or are you just thinking about yourself? Because it just sounds like, first it's like, look forward to the future. It's like you're going to go into start a Baz Luhrmann speech there.
You don't know what's around the corner. There's never been a bad Spider-Man movie. There's been bad moments in Spider-Man movies, but there's never been a bad Spider-Man movie because he is forever a character that is inherently just fun. Go read Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man run. That's happening at the minute if you want some good Spider-Man stuff. And go play Spider-Man on the PS5 because that's fun. And go read some Miles Morales. I'm sick of the internet being, I said this on the other pod, being like, Miles Morales isn't Spider-Man. He is. There's millions of Spider-Mans, and, you know, you pick one that you love. A lot of people love Gwen Stacy's Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider over Peter Parker, and that's cool too. And, you know, that's the whole reason comic books are a great medium, because you can pick and choose what you want. And usually if you give something enough love, it'll manifest itself into other mediums. Like, who would have thought we would have a fucking Amazon Plus or Amazon Prime TV show with Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir? That's, if you told me that 15 years ago, I would have been like, I'm naked, get out.
That was you 15 minutes ago, mate.
Stop stealing my Beetlejuice pajamas. But yeah, you know, I probably said more interesting stuff in the other three podcasts.
No, we didn't, Adam. No, we didn't. This is as good as we're gonna get. This is us condensed. This is us kind of semi on point. There's been little digressions, little rambles. This is as good as I think our listeners are ever going to expect us to be. And just when you mention other Spider-Mans are available, Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider, fucking love Scarlet Spider. And I know you're still bitter about what happened to Ben Reilly in the Spider-Verse movies, but we don't have time to go into that. I did like, though, Andy Samberg doing the voice.
Andy Samberg, good choice for the voice, just made the character a bit of a joke. That's all I'll say, quickly condensed.
Yeah, it's not fair. Ben Reilly, you deserve some love. As does, isn't it Keane as well, as another clone as well? But he's a bit shit, though, so fuck it, you can do whatever the fuck you want with him. Yeah, so that's pretty much us. So yeah, that brings to an end our retrospective for the live-action Spider-Man on screen. I think as we record this third attempt at the Tom Holland tenure as Spider-Man, I think the movies are still in cinemas. The last time I checked, I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the last one that was out. So you still got those to look forward to. Check them out on the big screen if you haven't seen them. I think Far From Home deserves maybe a bit of love off the three. And yeah, that brings this pod to a close. So on the next episode, you're going to hear Joe and Therese, where they're going to be back with Crime Scene to Screen. And then through a couple of episodes in September, Adam, you and I are going to go back like Prince. We're going to be partying like it's 99. We're going back to the greatest year of cinema. As we look back at some movies, we're going to have a poll up on our social media channels just to get people to pick between, you've picked 5 movies, I've picked 5 movies. We're going to discuss, I think, 4 of them. We'll have another ramble soon, and then we're nearly into spooky season. Hopefully no one's actually messaged in and asked for Adam's pajamas, because I think it would be quite nice if we did a live event if Adam came out in his Beetlejuice pajamas. Or if...
I'll get a new pair, and just putting this out now, yes, Danny Brown, you can have these pajamas.
You can have the bottoms from the current pair, and you can have the top from the new pair.
That's here. The bottoms have seen better days. Because I don't know, the listeners didn't get to hear this, but the second podcast we recorded, I was farting the whole way through it.
It was, listeners, it was. And that's how you know our relationship between Adam and I have reached a special place, where he no longer tries to hide it. He's just gently lifting his cheeks and going away and be like, be lucky you're not in the studio. Jim's like, yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks. That's true love.
It was quite beefy.
Beefy, yeah. But the less said about that, the better. So that brings us to a close. So as always, if you've enjoyed this pod, be sure to leave us a lovely review wherever you get your podcasting fix. Helps more people find this nonsense. Check out our back catalogue, again, wherever you find your podcasting fix, or you can find it on YouTube now as well, as along with the episodes of the TV show. That's hopefully going to be back at some point later this year, just with me at the minute, kind of not going out so much at home. If you've been wondering throughout this pod, if you've heard an occasional little buzz, because I have a little thing attached to me at the minute that is helping me fight infections. But yeah, the less said about that, the better. Hopefully going to get back into the studio soon, so we won't have 3 attempts at fucking up a podcast. And yeah, as I say, TV show back soon, more episodes, be sure to subscribe. Yeah, Adam, as always at this stage, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
And again, thank you very much, listeners. But for now, until next time, Excelsior!